right, guys, we back with another one, and today we still talking about Ja Morant. Now, guys, we've all been waiting to hear what Stephen A. Smith had to say on this topic, and he spoke on some interesting things. He didn't spare anyone. He called out T. Morant, he called out Ja Morant, he called out his circle around him. He offered some comparisons and some contrasts to Allen Iverson and Ja Morant, because that's what Stephen A. used to cover in depth, back in Philly. And he did point out one big difference, and he says a lot of times when you heard about Iverson, it was his entourage and the guys around him. And I ain't gonna say Iverson didn't have no control over it, but he didn't directly influence these guys to make the decisions they made. It was just he had the biggest name, so whenever something would go down, his name would get attached to it. This is what he had to say. Check it out.
I covered Allen Iverson for the first 10 years of his career, every day. And when I tell you that was a beat in and of itself, Woj knows what I'm talking about with that. Everybody knows what I'm talking about there. It was a different level, okay? But when you look at Ja Morant, the one thing that I find incredibly alarming, there was so much stuff that Allen Iverson took hits for that had nothing to do with him, but everything to do with the company he kept. And because from the streets, very loyal, ain't diming out anybody, he take a lot of hits. In this particular instance, that's Ja on film. That's Ja that you see on the TMZ video. He had no choice but to own that, to be honest with you. And so I applaud him for embracing that. But when you bring into account the other incidences, let me look in the camera and say what I'm about to say to Ja Morant. You are a superstar. You're 23 years old. You got a deal that kicks in next year that could exceed $231 million over the next 5 years. And on this show, on national television, there's you associated with police. Think about that for a second. And then ask yourself, is it really, really worth it? You know the answer to that, bro. It's not worth it. You're a superstar basketball player. You represent your organization. You represent your family. You represent your city. You've got to be mindful of all of that. It's never off. And so many times we don't tell these players this. NBA has off-duty police officers. They've got connections with the FBI. They've got connections with everybody. The NBA knows what you're doing. They know who you're doing it with. They know where you are. They know how you're conducting yourself at all times. Don't think they're not watching. They're always watching. And when I get upset is that all of us, Jalen's from the streets of New York, Detroit, I'm from the streets of New York City. We know this kind of stuff. We know the kind of things that people fight just to protect the few dollars they have. What do you think an organization is going to do to protect their multi-billion-dollar investment? They will spare no expense. They will do whatever they can. So I want him to be mindful of that, be aware of the stratosphere. You got to conduct yourself properly. I'm going to say it to his boys as well. I had the pleasure of meeting them in Dallas this summer. I think good dudes, hearts in the right place. They mean them no harm. But you got to step up and be protective of yourself and be protective of him by the way you conduct yourself. That laser that was allegedly pointing at the Indiana Pacers, you can't have stuff like that coming on. You can't have stuff. And last but not least, his dad, to T. Morant. Nothing but love and respect for you, sir. You are his daddy, not his friend. His daddy. I'm not saying you can't be friends, but you're his father. And so when we see this kind of stuff going on, all of y'all get lumped in because it ain't just a 23-year-old Ja Morant that needs to protect himself. It's all of you who love him, who want to protect him, who wishes for the best for him. You have an obligation to look out for him too. Do it.
So let's just hope, today marks the day that Ja Morant starts taking accountability for his actions. It's nobody but him that can change this. Yeah, you could say his mother, his father, everyone else can get in his ear. But at the end of the day, Ja needs to take a long look at himself, look in his daughter's eyes, and say, I need to start living a life that's best for my safety and her safety, because she's with him, sometimes. Let me live the best life I can live to ensure my family's safety and, continue to secure the bag that I've already secured through play. Only way I could lose it is antics and mess online. So he took one good step. He took down his stuff off social media, but Ja, don't think for a second the selfie video is the only one that can get you jammed up. Like Stephen A said, they're always watching. They have eyes everywhere, especially when they invested that much in you. You thought they gave you that money for you not to be under surveillance. I ain't want to say 24/7, but pretty much 24/7. Like they didn't put that money into you with no strings attached, and then you just go live the life you want. People gonna have camera phones up. The civilian even helps the NBA do his job now, because they always trying to get a flick with you, and you can have somebody far away. Cameras is on every restaurant, every nightclub, everywhere. So I would tell him right now, just stay out the nightclub right now. So, because this is the part that I don't necessarily hear people speaking on in depth right this second, but I think is very important. The vibes you've already put out there with your gun, with some of your commentary online, I don't think it'll be wise to go in a nightclub for a while, just because some of these people, even if you change, they're not going to change how they feel about you. They're going to say, oh yeah, I know he ain't got it on him now. Let's get him. Let's get him now, because I know he can't have it on him because he's trying to please the NBA. And if you still got it on you, you're wrong. But you wouldn't have to have it on you if it happens in your house, is one thing. You got it on you in there and you have to protect yourself. That's one thing. But going out into a nightclub, it's not going to be whose fault it was. It's going to be like, why was Ja there? You're at why was Ja there in the first place, whether you right or wrong. That's where you're at this point, because this isn't like the next thing isn't going to be your first, second, or third offense. So I would say don't even be in those environments. It's not worth what you have in front of you. Anytime you think about going out, go be with your daughter. Go hang with your daughter. I don't care how bored you are. Turn 2K on. Go jump in your pool at your house. Don't mingle with crowds for a while. You know what I'm saying? Just keep family close, the people that love you the most. Stay around those guys. Might need to send some of the homies home, to be honest with you. Send some of them guys back to South Carolina right now, because that's not what's best for you either. And if they love you, they ain't gonna be like, man, cook. They ain't gonna turn their back on you if they love you. They gonna understand where you coming from, right? And the ones that say, oh, you changed, you this, you that, then you know that they were just there for what they could get out of you. And so that'll be a blessing too. But hey, man, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, peace.